This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauda. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Welcome to a Geek Leader podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda. And if you could, please do me a favor and take a moment and leave a rating and review in whatever podcast player you're listening to this on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, doesn't matter. I would greatly appreciate it. And that feedback really helps get other listeners to the show. Also, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you feel so inclined, you can go to geekleader.com/tip and donate to the show. Thanks so much. All right, Geek Leaders. Today I'm honored to have Phil Alves on the show, and he is the CEO, founder of DevSquad. He's a serial entrepreneur, I guess you would say, starting at a young age, building technology products, and we're going to talk about how he helps other leaders develop SaaS tools and businesses and products and things like that. So anyway, with all being said, Phil, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
If you don't mind, just tell the audience a little bit about your background and kind of how you got into DevSquad and founding that, and what is that exactly?
Sure, yeah. So I'm a self-taught software developer. I never went to school to learn how to develop. I started learning at a very young age. I was 16, 17. And then kind of like by luck, I built a product that became very successful in Brazil, I'm originally from. So what I was doing at the time, I was learning to code, and then I was publishing everything that I was learning on my blog. And then I went and published in other websites. I kind of like sign up to be a contributor and say, hey, can I submit articles? And I didn't know what I was doing, but what I was doing was SEO because I was building links back to my own site. And then when I built a product to help people pay commissions and manage their sales teams, I wrote a blog post on my blog, and I was like, software to manage commissions or to pay commissions, something along those lines. That ranked first on Google, and from there, a lot of people start to calling me, and they want that same software. And it's kind of like how my career started. And then I sold that software for a bunch of people. I rewrote that software 4 times. So because I was like, okay, this is not great. Let's do it again. And then a lot of the time I hire a lot of developers, and they help me learn a lot more about software development and how to build great products. And it was a very fun. I ended up selling that business and moving to the United States when I was still 22.
Oh, wow.
That was more than 10 years ago now. I'm 35. So,
yeah, that's crazy. I think that's awesome that you kind of self-taught and did what, I would say I've heard Gary Vaynerchuk talk about a lot, is to kind of document what you're doing, and did that through your blog, and that kind of helped you take off. I think that's a really awesome way to kind of put out there what you're doing, and also shows a layer of transparency, which I think is important for, business owners.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was building in public before it was cool to build in public. So, it was a little bit of lucky and hard work, and that got me here from here in the United States. I went to college here, and I had a job here. But after that job, I decided to start DevSquad to help people build their own SaaS products. And originally it was supposed to be a small local firm here just in Utah, and I want to have like no more than 10 employees and just serve the local market. But what happened was people really like our service, and I saw a lot of companies really struggle to take products to market. Like most software products fail. And so I thought maybe we can replicate that squad, because there was one squad, and that squad was led by me. I was the product manager. And then we had like 2 very good developers in the squad, and we had a designer. So that was like kind of like the team, and we would only take the customers we could take. And my idea, okay, what if we can replicate that and we can serve more firms? And that's kind of like how we rebrand from SLC Dev Shop, which was Salt Lake City Dev Shop, to DevSquad. And now DevSquad, it's almost 100 employees, and we have worked with some of the biggest companies in the world. Like we have a lot of Fortune 500 as customers, and just helping them going from 0 to 1 and take SaaS products to market. So it's been pretty cool. Of course, it took a while. It's been many years. I started the company in 2014, but it's pretty good right now.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun too. To be able to take other
people's ideas and turn them into something that's a viable product out there. I think that's always a really cool thing. Are most of the people that come and work with you guys, most of the businesses, are they more or less like established firms that have this new thing that they want to launch that may be a little different than what they're doing today? Or is it usually like an added feature that they add on to something that they're working on?
So most of the time we're building a new product from scratch. And the people that are coming to us, they vary, but at least half of them is second, third time founders. So they had a company before in other space and they're like an industry expert. Maybe they know everything about accounting and now they want to build a software for accountants. Or they know everything about a construction business and how construction manage project different than anybody else. And then they want to build a software to help construction companies manage projects better. And so basically it's their industry expertise and we mix that with our building software expertise and then we help them take those to market. And it's pretty amazing because we learn about new industries and we learn about industries that are big that we never heard about, but it's still very big. And then, I mean, we work with financial advisors. I learned everything about how to manage money. It was super cool. I work with right now we're building some very cool products and in many different spaces. Some of them I cannot say until they go to market because of NDAs, but it's pretty cool.
How many times have you seen like certain aspects from one product that you've developed or worked on from somebody, and you were able to kind of put that into another product or advise the product owner that this is something that we've done before that works really well that you could also maybe take over? I mean, like you said, construction. Let's say you're building a product for construction, and you realize that maybe there's a scheduling aspect or a way to share files with the client of the construction person, and you could also reuse that maybe in some type of healthcare product that you're doing or something else. Have you seen that kind of synergies build by doing different verticals?
Yes, there are many features that are very common that people use across different verticals. Because, for example, we have built CRM for X, many CRMs. Think about CRM for construction, CRM for financial advisors, CRM for solar companies. And every CRM starts with the same foundation. There's contacts, there's stages of the deals. And so that foundation, we definitely are able to bring a lot to the table. And then our customers bring their unique perspective and tell us what is unique to their specific business. And then we're able to make that. Also, because we're experts in SaaS, we will tell them everything that they need to run the SaaS in the back end, from user impersonation to feature flagging to things that they don't understand. But because we have built so many products, we recommend that from the beginning.
And I guess you're also able to help maybe advise them about the business model. Like, how do you want to price this, or what kind of features should you offer? Should you have different tiered approach, or like a entry level, mid level, or pro version, or whatever?
Yeah, we do what we can there. It's not like our forte to advise them, but of course we even the customers that we accept, we want to B2B products. A lot of our customers, they're very successful for their own level, but in software, it's pretty funny because if you have a SaaS and it's making only $10 million, you are a fail for VC funds. But for a lot of our customers that are bootstrapped, it's amazing. Even if they make $1 million, 7 figures, they're much happy. And so it's very interesting to play in that space.
And are you also helping advise them on the current state of security, such as how do you secure your S3 buckets or whatever you're doing, and how do you build in multi-factor authentication and all the things that seem to be kind of prevalent and in the news when it comes to protecting SaaS products?
Well, yeah, for sure. We definitely do all the DevOps consulting and help them set up everything in a way that they're going to be safe. Many of our customers are getting SOC 2 compliant because they're playing the enterprise market. So we advise them on everything that they have to do to actually be ready for the length process of getting certified. And so, yeah, definitely. Another thing that's on that kind of like the same note, I always have to tell our customers to don't have too much FOMO, because if you read tech news all day, you're going to be stressed because there's how we do technology. Everyone is doing AI now. And I'm like, I don't think every single company has to do AI. For example, I use a Whoop with a device to track how I sleep.
Yeah.
They had an AI feature that I can ask questions to. I'm like, I never use this. You guys spend so much time building the feature because you have FOMO, and now you think every single product has to have AI, and it's not true. Like AI is powerful, but it's like years ago, everyone wants to be the Uber of X, and then before everyone wants to have a mobile app. And there's definitely an application, but I think a lot of our challenge with our customers is like, okay, let's take the emotion out and take the hype out, look at your product and see if there's really going to have a reason for us to implement this new technology, or is just FOMO that you are having. Is that going to make any difference? And there's applications that makes a huge difference. There's application that's not. And I always tell people, like, we have to think about having JOMO instead of FOMO. JOMO is joy of missing out instead of fear of missing out.
No, I love that. I love that you're talking about joy of missing out, because it's one of those things I've seen, people put, AI and everything. And before that, it was blockchain. Everything was on the blockchain. And It's like, do you really want to put, this on the blockchain? Do I really want my health data on the blockchain? I don't think so. And like you said, everything's now in AI, but why? Why do we need a chat function everywhere? I can just use the Bing chat or whatever, or chat GPT. I don't need it everywhere else too.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so everyone thinks that they have to add a chat, and it's adding zero value. They just are afraid of missing out.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of that's also, if you're trying to get that VC backing, putting those buzzwords of AI and blockchain kind of, helps a little bit.
Exactly. If VCs, they're so bad at like understanding, because if they weren't any good, like 90% of their investments fail, and so, but of course, now all the VCs, they want to see a play of AI. And I see even very like established firms, everyone, it's moving the direction, but maybe there are like other features that your core user base really need, and they are not caring about AI. I mean, I'm not saying just don't do anything about it. I'm saying don't just think you have to do it either. Like, really analyze, is this going to make a huge difference? Or is there any other thing that's going to add more value? I love your example. Like, yeah, everything was a blockchain. Like, nobody else wants to use the database anymore. And I'm like, database worked for the last many, many years, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've heard somebody say, oh, we're going to build a CMS on the blockchain. I'm like, well, why? Because I don't want to distribute contact. I mean, that's PII data. That's not something that I want to distribute at all. I want to secure that in one place in a single database.
Exactly. And it's the same thing that's happening to AI now. So that's the thing with technology. I think most companies will fail because they are trying to do too much and follow the next trend, not because they got behind. Everyone is afraid of getting behind because of like the big examples like Blockbuster or Yahoo. But in my experience, and I have built more than 100 SaaS products, work with hundreds of founders, most companies fail because they over-optimize, because they're following the newest trend, because they have FOMO. They don't fail because they got behind, So that's my take on that.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And one of the things, speaking of that, is just a quick example that I get a lot of emails. I've been doing this podcast for a long time now, and this is well over 300 episodes. And one of the messages I got, spam mail, somebody sent to me, about podcast creation, and they said, we can use AI to generate your topics and questions to ask your guest. And I'm like, but that takes away the raw and reality of the conversation. If I've got some chatbot sending me the questions that I'm supposed to ask you, I think it's better to just have a conversation. Why would I outsource that to chat?
Exactly. Now everyone is trying to find an AI for everything, and there's also a lot of fake AI out there. Behind the scenes is just a bunch of if and else, our old logic that we have been used to for the last.
Yeah, or even worse, it's people. It's the outsource people.
Yes, they're like AI.
Yeah, exactly. So, tell me a little bit about the the product life cycle that you guys go through. So, if someone comes to you and they have this great idea, and they've got money to start the project and develop it. They want you guys to come in and kind of do the heavy lifting and build the product. What kind of project management methodologies are you guys using? What's the the phases that things would go through?
Yeah, sure. So phase one, when they come to us, we want to work with them on what we call the Sprint Zero. And the Sprint Zero has a couple of phases. We want to create a business plan. Like we loved the lean canvas as a starting point. We have other versions, but we wanted to really understand their business big picture. What's the problem they're solving? What's the solution? Who's the competition? What's their go-to-market strategy? Because we are here not just to build their software, but to be their partner and have to have a big picture. From there, we will design prototypes, click a prototype of the product, and then we'll do some interviews using user interviews and making sure that we are solving the problem that people actually have. And what I always like to say, we interview customers not to ask for the solution, but to validate they have the problem, because they don't know the solution. That's the founder's job. That's why the founder many times is an industry expert. And once we're done with that sprint zero, we usually have a very clear roadmap of like version 1 of the product. And then we start working on that product and we start to build on 2-week cycles, sprints. I will assign a team, which is going to have at least 4 people to build the product, which is going to be a product manager, product designer, and a few full stack software engineers. And then you're just going to be building, trying to take to market as quick as possible. We want to stay in the 3 to 4 months range. And we're going to be keeping doing what we call the track agile. We're going to keep doing discovery and you're going to keep developing. And our first goal is to help the customer find product market fit, and the first product that usually go to market is not the product that's going to have product market fit, and that's normal. And then we will keep it improving on the product. And so that's basically our process to help customers build software products.
Yeah, I think it sounds like you're doing some type of, I guess you're using Scrum or a type of Scrum to kind of do your agile project management for this.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you find that works really well with, these product owners or business owners that come to you that don't really have any Scrum experience? Or are they kind of like blown away by how quickly you guys can do this stuff? Or are most people kind of accustomed to that by now?
I think a lot of people are kind of accustomed to that, even if they're not in the industry. And I think like the biggest value that we add, it's in the product area. Like, how can we understand what the product you're building and what problem it is solving? Because a lot of people, they just want to develop, but what's the impact of the work that we were doing? And that's kind of like what we were trying to track, because Scrum is great to get work done, but it doesn't help us get the right work done. So that's where we need product management to make sure we build the right features.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So how do you mentioned user interviews as kind of one of the ways that you kind of see how things are going and what direction you want to go. Where do you find these beta users or alpha users or whatever you want to call them that kind of come in there and help out with that?
Yeah, it's actually userinterviews.com. It's a great place. And sometimes our customers also have connections in the industry and they're going to make introductions to us. But if they don't, userinterviews.com is a website where people can go and they can say, hey, I want to speak with doctors. And then they go and they get those doctors for you, and then you pay them some amount of money per hour, and they answer your questions, and they go through your user testing and anything that you might need to validate your idea.
Oh, wow. And I guess from that point, then you would take that feedback and kind of have like a sort of like a retrospective, I guess, with the product team and kind of work through, well, they said they liked this part of it, but the user interface was missing some core key components that were necessary. And,
Exactly. Because, and even sometimes before we design, we interview users to make sure there is a problem. Mm-hmm. Because maybe first we want to validate there's a problem, and then we come up with a solution, and then we do another interview to validate that the solution solves the problem. Because again, the interviews with customers, they're not going to tell us the solution. They're just going to tell us what the problem is. And then we have to make sure the solution solves the problems later.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And what kind of metrics do you guys help like like post launch? Like if you guys are live with this, do you help with metrics as far as like times that it crashes or things that need to be enhanced on it, or maybe advising that, hey, you got to put more power behind your hosting service or something like that?
Yes, there are many kinds of metrics in a software product, right? Or a development team. I actually built my own product. It's called DevStats, DevStats.com. And what the product does is benchmark your development team against industry standards. So I'm looking at lead time, cycle time, code review, size, how many times we have issues in production, which is change failure rate. So those are all the stats that we are looking as far as making sure that the development team is doing well and that the product it's stable. And then on the actually, there's other stats that we're going to look at. For example, Mixpanel allow us to understand how the users are using the product. We want to know like how frequent people are coming back, like for how many weeks or how many days in a straight people are using your product, because that's how you know you had product market fit. And so then we track by another tool like Mixpanel. I don't own that one, but there's a lot of stats. I think it's very important to understand your user in many ways, and it's also important to understand your development team to see where we can improve. Like I look at things, for example, like planning accuracy. It's one of my favorite numbers. How much of what we say we do, we actually did. If you always do 100%, there's a problem because the team is afraid of making mistakes. If you're doing like below 80%, maybe you're being too optimistic. So the like perfect range is between 80 and 95%. It's how well you want it to plan, because you want to still leave space for the developers to be optimistic and to know that they're not going to be penalized, you know, and they're there to build an amazing product.
Yeah, I think it's a great metric because it's showing that you're not. That you have a team that's not afraid to, to see that, oh, we're doing this thing wrong, or we can do this better if we just change this one thing, And then also a lot of times, I've seen it when we're building internal products. We'll have someone that comes to us with all these list of requirements or things that have to be there, and then as you start building, you realize that some of these aren't necessary, and they're just kind of, they're almost like bloated stuff that we can just cut out, at least for our first iteration, and probably don't even need them at all because they're probably fields that aren't going to be used.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that we do is talk to our customers to reduce the size of the product they take to market. Mm-hmm. Most times people think they need a lot more than what they need. And then from there, I love having also stats. So they're like, hey, we really, really need this feature. Then we build the feature. Then we track, look, we built this feature and 5% of your user base is using it. It cost you this much money. Was it worth it? So those are conversations that you can have when you have the right stats in place too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think that's pretty awesome how you guys are doing that. What are some of the trends that you've seen that are changing with software engineering or development over the last, let's say, 5 years that has kind of changed how you guys build products?
So, like I told you, I'm very big at not making a lot of changes and not be worrying with FOMO. So one of the biggest things that I noticed that went full circle, when there was a lot of capital in the market and the investors were putting a lot of money, microservices become very popular. That's an architecture where you have a lot of complexity and there's many, many microservices to build something. And then you end up with like a very big development team. It's very, very complex. And that was the trend for a long time because everyone wants to be like Netflix. Even Twitter they left their monolithic Ruby on Rails application and they built like this huge like microservice that just lately were like, they were joking or saying that Elon Musk it wasn't understanding how the software worked. And I'm like, how complex can you make a thing like Twitter that someone like Elon Musk doesn't understand the code? So I feel like there was a very, very big push towards complexity and adding a lot of complexity because there was a lot of money and there was a lot of people and people thought that was the way to do. And especially also as those people that work at big companies, they become consultants. They're like, okay, this is how we should do. And I think we went full circle and now everyone is going back to simplicity because we have to do more with less now because companies are trying to be profitable and money is scarce. And so now everyone, it's going back to simplicity and it's monolithic is kind of have a comeback because people realize that all the complexity wasn't needed most of the times. And so along the years, of course, we kept updating the technology that we were using, but we were always making sure that we were not following trends that would put us and our customers in a bad scenario. And that's one of them that we didn't follow, but it was fun to watch grow and basically crash now. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because, at one point I remember it's probably more than a decade ago, we were building some projects and one of our architects was all about having a service bus and doing, extremely having a lot of microservices in our application. I'm like, well, this is a very simple application. I don't think we need to go this route. And he's like, yeah, everything needs to be exposed to an API and then call your own API. I'm like, but it really, like, this is a very small app. It doesn't need all this stuff. But he wanted to architect it that way. And we did that. It took like a whole lot longer to build and put it out there. And then it turned out to be something that no one used and we shut it down anyway. Whereas we could have, prototyped it and had it out there really quickly in a simple form, not using a service bus and microservices and things like that, and just having very simple, architecture, and then tested it. And it's all like, oh, wow, this is growing. We do need to expand it, or no, we don't. And one of the quotes that I love is from the book Accidental Creative, says that we should always make the complex seem simple. And if you find something that's really complex, how can you simplify it to make it, the minimal viable product, to make that simple?
Yes, for sure. And it's funny, like how it go back to what we were talking before. Like I see that all the time too. Companies end up being slower, there end up being more problems too. Because also another thing that I see, sometimes I see a team of like 3-4 people trying to run a big microservice software. And I'm like, look, at this size team, you can't. If you want to copy Netflix, okay, then you go raise a bunch of money and hire hundreds of developers. Because that's how you build that kind of application. And it's you don't need it.
Right.
Most of the time, I mean, Shopify, it's one of the great examples of a huge application that it's not a microservice,
Okay. Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that's one of the big problems that people have, is they want to either grow too fast or start too complex, and not realizing that having a simple product out there is, well, for starters, it's better than having no product. But also, it's better to have something simple and that you can kind of grow and build versus starting really complex.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
So I think this is great. I think it's one of those interesting topics to kind of learn about. But what is some of are one of the most interesting projects that you have worked on at DevSquad that you can share?
I will say that I have really enjoyed building my own product. I have been building for like over a year and a half, and understand how development teams work, because my goal has always been to deliver my clients high performing development teams, and so now I can do that not only through my service company DevSquad, but also through my SaaS, because even if they don't hire my service company, they can hire my SaaS to help their team improve, and so they can stop running company kind of like based on feelings and do based on data. And it's a very complex application, and I'm having a lot of fun thinking about how to understand what developers are doing, how to remove the roadblocks. And also, as the company grew, me as the CEO, I got further and further from where the work is actually happening. So like my job changed, and I wasn't spending much time actually building products. I was spending time managing systems and putting things in place. And it was super cool in the last like year or so and a half to go back and to work on my own product and to go back and to actually build products. And that also has helped me as I advise our customers in my consulting business, So that's been probably the most fun project I have worked in a long time.
I think that's awesome. And I think it's really helpful and beneficial for people to always step back and kind of do their own thing. And, because it keeps you fresh, keeps you learning and moving forward. And I do that too. I mean, I teach part-time at Winthrop University, and occasionally I have my own apps that I put out there and build just for fun, that, little stupid games and things like that. But I think it's really important to do that. So
cool. Yeah. I love doing that too. Like I love writing proof of concepts and it's still trying to build small things. And I think just last weekend I built something, and then I uploaded on my GitHub, and I was like, okay, that was cool. Because I don't get to actually write code much anymore, so I did it for like maybe 8 hours, and it was fun. But with DevStats, I get to do a lot of product management, which also I didn't get to do. Basically, the bigger the company got, the further, because you have to keep replacing yourself as an entrepreneur. If you're not training new people, if you're not putting yourself out of a job all the time, you're not actually doing your job correctly. That's your job as an entrepreneur, is always to run yourself out of a job. So but it's been cool to make that transition back and build this product and be closer to the development team again. It's funny to think that I own a development company, and I got pretty far from development teams.
So real quick, just tell us a little bit about DevStats and kind of how, maybe a company, if any of the listeners are out there, managing software development teams and things like that, how they might want to utilize something like that.
Yeah, so DevStats, the one thing you can go, you're going to connect to your Git, and you're going to connect to where you're running your projects, maybe Jira, and then you're going to get a lot of data, and you're going to be able to benchmark the data against industry standards. Like we look at research that Google made, like Barometrics, or the Space Framework, which was researched by Microsoft, and we put out the data, and you can benchmark where your team is. From there, you can use the software to improve those numbers. One of the numbers that people start to work on first is usually PR cycle time. How long does it take from when you start committing to when that gets merged? What can you do because if that's too big, maybe you have to reduce the size of the work, or maybe code review is taking too long. How can we help the code review be better? And also, the product is very, very good for analyzing code review and improving the quality of the code reviews in your company. And I believe code review is the most important ceremony in software development. And unfortunately, it doesn't happen enough. Like people do daily and they do retro, but they don't do like code review. And code review is how you make your junior developers grow. It's how the team gets together. And I believe it's the one place where developers can really grow. And the software, and that's what makes the software unique, helps a lot in the area. There's a lot of other competitor products, developer analytics too, but our emphasis and the developer experience and in the code review cycle, it's what makes us different than any other product in the market.
I think that's awesome. So how do people, connect with you, learn more about DevSquad and DevStats, and just find out what you guys are up to?
Yeah, they can go to devstats.com or devsquad.com. And if you want to hear specifically about me, you can go to Alves.com. It's my newsletter. I write like once a month or so, but from there, you're going to be able to sign up and hear about me and the things I'm doing as I'm building different products.
Awesome. And I like all that in the show notes too at geekleader.com, so people can click through and hit all three of those sites. Bill, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. I think it's a great conversation.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Please go to geekleader.com to learn more about what this guest is up to, click on their links, and connect with them online. I would also greatly appreciate it if you could leave me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to the show. And make sure you've subscribed if you haven't already. And if you feel so inclined, you can leave me a tip by going to geekleader.com/tip.